You're watching The Collective.
The Collective.
The Collective.
The Collective. The Collective.
The Collective.
The Collective.
The Collective.
Welcome to the Fourth Dimension Collective. This is not a drill, this is a real thing. I'm Brian, I'm here with Tommy, Tony, and Tyrone, and today we're going to talk about halfway houses and sober homes, and some questions about that. Tommy, we're going to start with you. What should an alcoholic addict use a halfway house for?
A halfway house. When I think of halfway house, the first thing that comes to mind is transitional living, which for me means maybe not quite equipped to live on my own, completely on my own as an individual, but also, I'm not like in a treatment center where I'm being watched 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So somewhere right in the middle. So I think transitional living, and I also think temporary. So what I would use a halfway house for, what I think that, the ideal situation of using a halfway house for is really just to like get back on your feet with kind of someone looking after you with, other guys around you giving you a little bit of accountability. Maybe that means like integrating back into like the workforce, getting like a nice, easy job. They call it like a recovery job down here. Working like maybe 20, 30 hours a week, but also, the main thing is to establish yourself like in some sort of program of recovery, like whatever that's going to look like for you. That can be a multitude of things. It could be AA, NA, CR, what have you. But you need to kind of ingratiate yourself into one of those things, and that should be really the main focus. And now the great thing about like a sober living environment is you have other people around you that are doing the same thing. So when you're going into a halfway house, I feel like it gives you an opportunity to kind of like get your feet out, get your feet under you. That means, setting up a structured schedule of going to meetings, maybe meeting with a sponsor, just kind of like getting back into the real flow of life. I mean, that's what I used it for. But also in the back of my mind, knowing I'm not going to be there forever. It's like a time for me to kind of like just get my priorities in line so that I don't have to live in the halfway for a long time. It also means like limiting my distractions. I'm not there to have a girlfriend. I'm not there to, like start a family or get like a career. I'm there to like really bring it back to the very like basics of life, just so I don't have to, again, be at the halfway house or the sober living environment for all that long. So when I think of it, I think of just like, a time, whether that be 6 months, a year and a half, whatever it is, and it's different for everybody. But it's just like, getting yourself back into the flow of what real life looks like. And that maybe means like a little job, going to some meetings and, building a basis of recovery in the rest of your life, like built on concrete instead of quicksand. And I feel like that's what a halfway house allows you to do.
Thank you, sir. And as far as halfway houses and sober homes go, I feel like, with this next question, Tony, that I want to ask you, they look different if you go in certain areas. What a good halfway house may look like in South Florida might be something different than how it looks in Pennsylvania. But my question for you is, what does a good halfway house look or function like? And if you could share some of your experiences with being in halfway.
Yeah, absolutely. My first experience was when I was up north, and to be honest, it was really just a simple suggestion. After coming out of treatment, I was lost, scared, full of fear, not knowing what to do, had no direction, So it was a suggestion based on the individual that was helping me, just taking a look of, where I was. He knew I was scared, and he knew I didn't really have much direction, so he gave me a suggestion to take that step and move into a halfway house situation. And what it looked like at that time was, I had no idea what it was going to be like, but when I got there, it was structured. And this is up north. This is my up northern perspective. It was totally structured. I got there, and during a day, there were actually staff on site, and in the evening, they would leave, and there was a house manager that would live there, and during the day, they kind of told us what to do. We had to do ILP or volunteer. There's no sitting around watching TV. So they kept it really, really constructive. That's what it looked like. On the weekends, we had our free time to attend meetings and stuff like that. But for me, at that time, I had no direction. So I needed something, some type of structure in my life. you know. And that's my northern perspective. Coming down here, it was totally different. It's a whole different atmosphere, you know. This time, you know, it was really an opportunity just to get established. It was simply an opportunity to get established. And then I realized as it went on that it was also an opportunity to practice what I was learning in real life. So it's like hands on. I'm actually life and situations, especially relationships with other people, you know, when you live with them, they come at you. And it gave me an opportunity to actually learn how to practice these things, you know.
And Tyrone, when do you think a halfway house is doing more harm than good? When is it probably hindering somebody's recovery or growth versus helping them?
First of all, I had to understand what a halfway house was, and what it was explained to me coming from coming out of treatment was it was like a transitional living. You know, meaning, and I like to put it simple, like I'm halfway there. You know, I'm halfway into the stream of life again. So yeah, I had to understand what that was before I say I'll go. You know, and because the halfway houses I'm used to are the halfway houses from up north, as Tony alluded to, that I was used to is you come straight from jail and you go to a halfway house. You know, there's drug dealers outside the halfway house. There's a liquor store right next door. You know, so the view I have now of halfway houses and the view I had then is a lot different. So with that being said, me coming down here and down south and learning the other halfway house living, it gave me a more comfortable look at it. And the halfway house I went to, I consider to be one of the best ones I have seen around. And the truth of the matter is, the one thing that stuck out to me the most was accountability and instruction. And that's what I see people striving the most, because I know for me, I'm undisciplined, especially coming down here. I'm unstructured. I try to do things my way. And I really don't have any guidance. So going to a halfway house, which really doesn't tell you what you have to do, but it's structured so that you know that what you have to do. Meaning that there's rules, you know, there's certain demands of you. And that's the kind of halfway house I went to. And that seemed to me, from being in this, you know, over 10 years, watching a halfway house scene, the structured ones are the one that put out the best recovery, so to speak. Another thing I want to say too is that you don't have to be in recovery to be in a halfway house either. That's another thing people get mistaken. You can just go to halfway house and follow the rules and not drink or drug, and you'll be okay. So that's another thing I want to put out there too. Like you don't have to work a program. You don't have to have a sponsor. Sometimes you do. Some halfway houses demand that, but I was told that you don't have to do that, but you do have to obey the laws that the halfway house presents. So I just think that a real structured halfway house is probably the most effective halfway houses that I've seen in my time down there.
One thing I want to touch on, and you know, I learned it through sponsorship and the guys that I've been around in early recovery. It was important for me to build my network outside of the halfway house, how significant that was early on. And that started by getting a sponsor and then meeting guys that had more time and more experience than me. Because great halfway house or terrible halfway house, you know, addicts are going to get high and alcoholics are going to drink. So there's going to be times that might be a little crazy, a little volatile at the house. What made it more tolerable was the fact that I was building a foundation and a network outside of that halfway house. So when I would come back to it, you know, I was a little bit more at peace. I want to throw a little curveball on this and just ask a question. I'm going to share my experience first on something from the other coast when I was there. I want to ask the question, what is a flop house? That's a term we hear thrown around a lot in the recovery world in terms of a sober home or halfway house. So the first thing that I want to share about, I was on the other coast. I remember it was, you know, my last attempt at recovery, and I'm in treatment, and it was suggested to me to go to some type of transitional living or halfway house, and I go to this house based on a gentleman that I meet in an H&I meeting that was brought into the treatment center. And great guy, had wisdom, was quoting the book, you know, seemed like he was a man of purpose. So I go to his halfway house, very nice house. There's about 6 or 7 guys in it, and there was a female house that was a couple blocks away. And it was good. I think for me personally, I wasn't ready yet in terms of the things that I needed to do, the suggestions that were given to me. But something that did come to light, you know, and then I found out from others in the community, and I probably would have found this out sooner if I was plugged in, was one of the things he was doing was, in order for females to stay if they didn't have money for their rent, they would trade sexual favors with this guy. So that was probably my first experience of a house that had some things that were completely contradicting what we as clients at the house were trying to do. So anybody can take this one. What do you think a flop house is, and what does that consist of?
Well, I think Tyrone touched on it a little bit in terms of structure and accountability. My idea of a flop house would be a living situation where there was no structure, no accountability, therefore chaos. And I was thinking that in this process, for me, it was like huge. The concept of people, places, and things had a huge impact on how I performed. The people I was around, the place, and the things. And you know, being in a flop house, my idea was no accountability, no structure. Coming into that type of environment in early recovery, as an addict and alcoholic, I'm going to tend to, you know, follow those people in those places that are directly around me. And if they have no structure, no accountability, then eventually that's going to be me. You know, I'm not going to have any principles of life, and eventually, you know, it's just like the same concept. If you're in a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. If there's people in the flop house and they're not being accountable for the way they live their lives, and then eventually I'm in that environment, I probably will follow along, you know, that same path.
I was thinking about it too, and I think you're absolutely right. Because when I think of a good sober living environment, it's structured and safe environment, and that's what you need. But that's one of the things that, I mean, like the difference I think between like a good structured halfway house, sober living, and a flop house is the management, like the people at the top. Like that's where it has to start. And like any business, and you know, sober living, like, you know, there is a big part of it, like it's a business, I mean, at the end of the day. But in like any business, and when you get into, you know, into doing something, whether you're gonna start up, you know, a store or some kind of service, like what is your priority? Is your priority purely to make money in your bottom line, or is it going to be whatever, to provide a great service to people, to help people? If those priorities are aligned, like then you're probably going to like set up a pretty successful business. And like the same with sober living. If you get into it, you're going to open up a halfway house with the idea that you want to help people and also make a little bit of money along the way, like, you know, that's a part of it too, then you'll probably be successful. And I was thinking, like, I've only had good experiences in halfway houses. And that's because when I went in there, it was structured, it was safe, and there was a clear guideline and set of rules that I needed to follow, or else I wasn't going to be allowed to live there. And now a big part of that too is like following through. So if someone, you know, didn't abide by the rules in the halfway house, then they'd have to leave. And I think, you know, the more rules at a halfway house, you know, as much as that may not seem like such a great thing in the beginning, that's a better halfway house, I think, when there's like more rules in place, you know, as long as it's not out of control. But I go to sober living, and other people I think too, but I'll speak for myself. I go to sober living because I could not manage my own life. I'm paying someone to live at their residence, and also for them to take some basic freedoms away from me, because I have proven to myself and others that I cannot live on my own and do all that stuff by myself, or else I would not have to go into sober living. Now a flop house, I think, is just someone that has created an environment where it doesn't really matter what's going inside the house, as long as you are paying the rent up at you know, at the end of the week or the end of the month or what have you. And that person is just concerned with the money. Now people can do whatever they want inside there, and they'll stay because, again, what they're hoping for is not for someone to get better and then eventually leave. They're just hoping that they're getting paid at the end of the week, right? I mean, that's at least what I think about. So I think about less rules, no accountability at all, no structure. Most of the time, they're not even a safe environment. Again, I've been fortunate enough where I haven't had to live in one, but I certainly know a lot of people that go to them. And I guess at the end of the day, it's a lot on you, but unfortunately the person that's going in doesn't always know, like you were just saying, you don't always know that you're going into a bad halfway house until you actually get there. I went out of treatment and went into a halfway house. I didn't know if it was a good one or not. I just went, I didn't know the difference, but as it turns out, it was good, and it was good for all those reasons that have been said by everybody here.
One thing I want to say too is that I'm coming to understand that just because you open up a halfway house doesn't mean you have to be for the people. Right. Anybody, and that goes with treatment or anything of that nature. Like, you don't have to care about the people to open up a facility like that. That's what I've been learning from my experience these last few years, which is really sad. It's really sad because we have a lot of people dying out here. And I'm not going to say, like, listen, halfway house keeps you sober, because that's not the case. But I feel like if you're going to put out a product like that and it has to deal with the failure is people dying, then you should be a little bit more serious about that. But then you got to come to accept that, we can't change people. We're powerless over people. And, they're going to do what they're going to do. But I think it's us as a people, of alcohol, whatever you a part of, and if you're in recovery, that we need to stand together and start fighting some of this stuff. Because I'm looking at myself too as a parent, and sending my child down here and paying for a service and hoping that, they get the best care available and you're telling me that you're getting the best, they're getting the best care, and then I find out otherwise. And I'm not saying that kids don't come down here and they don't do the program and they lie to their parents and stuff like that. But at least let me know that what you're structuring gives my child a chance. Right. That's basically what I'm looking at. So it's really disheartening, man. And it's really some bull crap that goes on around here. But only thing we can do is stand for something as a group and as a fellowship and probably like do something about it. And don't be scared to speak up and do something about it. So that's my take on the flop. The flop houses only last if we allow them to last. Right. Really that simple. If they fill up, they fill up. Let's get real. Like, flop houses fill up. There's people that like couple houses and stuff like that. Like, there's an avenue for them. But the more we get things right and the more we try to stay with some principles around here, the less of them there will be. Right. Because we'll start weaning them out. So it's up to the people too. It's up to the people and what we accept. So
that's is one thing you had said in terms of like helping people, making money and helping people, and I was lost whether you saying that was okay or not, or is that like that it's okay to do that. Yeah, I disagree with that right there, because I just being, from what I've been seeing and being taught and hearing other people's perspective, I can't make money and help people at the same time. I can do that, but if I'm doing that, it's not necessarily service.
Tony, you work in treatment, don't you?
Yeah, but it's not service, and that was brought out to me because, and I had to learn that because I was thinking, because I'm helping people on different levels, but I'm getting paid for it, is not service. And one of the things that the biggest thing that stands out with difference between flop houses and a halfway house, a structured halfway house, is integrity. If it was up to me, I think all halfway houses should be called integrity. And it should start with integrity, And that's because I've gone through some really serious experiences based on, no integrity being there. That should be at the head, and then kind of flux yourself down.
I see what you're saying, dude, but like we don't live in that type of world, and there's really no other place in society where that happens, where everything is just like utopia. And like, what's unfortunate about it, and like what Ty said, is that in this whole deal with addiction and alcoholism, is that the end result is people can die, and you don't get that in a lot of other places. Like, for instance, if you go into a restaurant, and like you can tell, like when a restaurant, like the people about it, they're like, they care, like that's their passion is food, and like making it, providing a good service and also good food. And you can also go into ones where like you can tell they don't really care, they don't really give a shit, whether it's good or not. This is the same type of thing. But the thing is, when you go to a restaurant like that, the worst thing that's probably gonna happen is you get some bad service and a bad meal. Mm-hmm. You can go to a bad halfway house and and unfortunately you can maybe not make it back. Mm. But I also like what Ty said, because this isn't just on the people that open them. This is also a lot on the people that are going to them or going back to them. there's been plenty of times where I've recommended a halfway house that I stayed at because I've stayed at some good ones, and if someone asks, I recommend the ones that I've been to because that's what I know and I had a good experience there. I know what they're about. They don't always go, you know what I mean? Like sometimes they'll be like, nah, I'm gonna go to this other one in Lake Worth, you know, right off Federal, because it's easier, man. They don't have as many rules. They can have their girlfriend over whenever they want. Maybe their girlfriend lives with them, you know what I mean? Like they can get high and stay in the house. Like not everybody always wants to go that harder route with structure and accountability and rules and stuff. So it's not always, you know, it's not just on the people that are opening them up or providing the service. A lot of this, like Ty said, does fall back on the actual person that's going to them. So
I agree.
Yeah, like and to Tommy's point, and Tyrone's point, if clients or if the people going in, if the addict or alcoholic really wanted to get recovery, then flop houses wouldn't have business. You know what I mean? They wouldn't have any people there because no one would want to go to them. To touch on your point, I know you had said that you had disagreed with Tommy about that a halfway house can't make money and be successful. If that were the case, there'd be so many established halfway houses right now that wouldn't be running if they didn't make money. So at the end of the day, it is still a business. It has to be profitable, but there's a good way to do things and there's a bad way to do things. And that's why we have some reputable houses that have been around here for years because what they keep first is the principles, you know, from the top and it trickles down, you know, and just like Tommy had touched on earlier, if the clients aren't willing to adhere to those principles or at least learn to grow and follow those principles, they get kicked out. And that's one of the symptoms of a good halfway house, is what I'm learning in my time down here. It's times where you'll see houses that are constantly forgiving people that are making the same mistakes and don't make an effort to change. That is kind of in the category of a flop house, in my opinion. But yeah, Tyrone, if you could just kind of close us out on any takeaways you have or anything that you want to close with.
First of all, I just want to, because I get very emotional when we talk about stuff like this, because sometimes I was just sitting there thinking like, I think we're some of us or some people that's the clients are like treated like cattle. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, like animals, like just property. And I'm thinking like, all I can think about is just, this is life we're talking about here. Like, I mean, okay, have a house, you opening it, and I know you got flop. I mean, but yo, grab some kahunas and like start caring about people. You know what I'm saying? Like all these, I don't like it. You know, I don't like it because whether the client knows or not, because usually they don't know any better. You know, usually they just, you know, people are like, well, I get it. You can go to other places, but sometimes they don't know any better, and we hope that the halfway houses will at least look at them as if they're their kids, or if they have family members a part of it, and treat it like that. Because sometimes, don't get it twisted, what goes around comes around. You know, everybody gets a turn. So let's just start remembering that, like, we're all trying to help each other out, man. And I know you can get money and you're trying to get rich and stuff like that, but you can get rich by believing or taking care of people, right? Like, it's okay. I've seen it happen. Like, it's okay. You're gonna be okay. You know, you can think about people and their well-being and still get money.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, in this field, it's a different field. Like, this is not like, you can't run this like a mall or like a sneaker store. You can't run it like that. It's just, you just can't. Right. These are human beings involved. Human beings is your customers, right? That want to live for the most part. You know, and one thing I want to say about halfway houses too, if you're in a halfway house right now and you think that you can just leave there and get an apartment and you're not obeying the rules at the halfway house, you're not going with the structure, you're not doing what they ask of you, and you think you can just leave there and turn on accountability and responsibility, you're wrong. You know, if you know how to handle a halfway house, then you probably will have a good chance of handling life. If you can't handle the rules in a halfway house, you're damn sure ain't gonna be able to handle life. Because that's simple, because life don't care if you were in a halfway house or not. It's coming at you. Right. So I just wanted to throw that out there, man, to people, man, that just taking these halfway houses for granted too. You know, I got sober in a halfway house. I learned how to live in a halfway house. Period. You know, so, you know, I know everybody ain't gonna always, you know, adhere to you know, wanting to be healthy and whatever. Everybody has their own motives. I learned that people that come to recovery or come to halfway houses don't all have the same motive. You gotta understand that. You know, probably one person in that apartment that wants to get sober out of the whole apartment. That's really the percentage when you think about it. So I gotta understand that too. But listen, man, you know, the person that wants to be there, if it's only one person that wants to be in my halfway house, if I had a halfway house and they want to get sober, I gotta give them the best service. I don't care if it's 50 others that don't want it. Gotta give them the best service because their life depends on it. So that's what I got on that.
Good.
I just want to say
Go
one
ahead.
thing real quick.
Go ahead.
What stuck out was, am I being of service? Am I doing service or a disservice? Am I doing service or a disservice? And I think, based on my experience in a halfway house, I think like if I had a halfway house, that is one question that I would continually have to ask myself, maybe even on a daily basis. You know, am I doing a service or a disservice? And I want to make one thing clear. I truly, truly believe that if you're working a strong program, if I'm working a strong program and I'm centered in it and I'm giving it my all, I believe that I could stay sober in a crack house, a flop house, or a structured halfway house. It's really up to me and you know how bad I really want it.
Well, first of all, if you were staying sober and you were working a program, you wouldn't want to be in a crack house or a dope house. So that doesn't even, I mean, I get what you're saying. You
Right,
can stay
right.
sober anywhere. But
Right.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's really about the person and what they want to do with their life. But the most people I've seen in my experience, and probably you guys too, that want to stay sober, they try to pick the better halfway house. Really that simple. You know, of course. You know, some people, like I said, some people in there don't want to get sober. I mean, they're just there to...
Or some people might not be there too.
Exactly. So, yeah.
So yeah, don't try to get sober in a crack house. Guys,
Tony didn't do it, so you don't do it.
this is a great conversation today, guys. I appreciate viewers watching the Fourth Dimension Collective. Next week, our agenda, we're going to have a couple females on here. We're going to be talking about relationships and early recovery, so I really hope you guys join us. Thanks for watching.